Hello to you all and welcome to IMPROVATE's Cybersecurity 2021 conference. I'm Lauren Iso. Safety is a provider of zero trust access solutions, which mitigate attacks on enterprises' business critical services and sensitive data. Eitan Bremler is co-founder and vice president of corporate development at cybersecurity company Safety Data, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, have we seen changes in corporate user behavior during COVID-19?
So yeah, actually yes. But even prior to COVID, there was a big change. I mean, after COVID, and we heard this today, a lot of people are connecting from home.
Right.
But even prior to COVID, organizations had many different users connecting remotely. You know, I used to go, when I used to fly, connect from my VPN from my hotel or from the office. So there were a lot of users connecting remotely. What COVID did is kind of did like this for remote work. Suddenly everybody's going home.
I think this is an understatement.
Exactly like this. So everybody went home. And, you know, we had organizations calling us up, you know, I need something very fast. Suddenly it's everybody connecting from home. Now, these people connecting from home, as opposed to people used to working remote, you know, on the road, what we call road warriors, or people from the office, weren't really trained on how to work from home. You know, I go home and suddenly I need to connect from my home PC. In the morning, I'm using my home PC. In the afternoon, my kid is using it for Zoom, and I'm using it for Netflix in the evening. So this computer is by far unmanaged, right? There's a lot of stuff probably running on it, but that's what I have to use, right? So that's what I'm using. So organizations now need to deal with users who are untrained on how to work remote, connecting from unmanaged devices, which might be infected with viruses, who don't have the mindset of remote working. Plus, they work in different hours of the day, right? From my living at home and, you know, with my kids, my working hours were really dependent on when I have time, not, you know, my kids are on Zoom, I can work. So it's not 9 to 5 anymore. It's like throughout the day. And that means organizations need to also adapt how they treat, because you might get phone calls of, I can't connect at 10 p.m. and not only in the morning.
Right. So you mentioned that this was happening before COVID-19, but really how much worse has it become during the pandemic?
So it became much worse. Again, like I said, we had organizations that suddenly had to send people home. Universities and restaurant chains that from today to tomorrow, 400 people need to connect from home. We saw organizations that moved from 1,000 people connecting remotely to 3,000. And what happens is that they were running, you know, after their own tail, accommodating all of these new users. And that affected how, and I'll explain later, in terms of security, the effect. But basically, suddenly you have everybody connecting from home. IT now needs to deal with people not used to Zoom, not used to using maybe VPNs, different hours of the day, like we said. And instead of investing in infrastructure, and, you know, day-to-day work and all their plans in organization and IT, the plans for 2020 just went down, you know, into the trash, because suddenly I need to deal with remote work.
Sure.
And we saw attacks generated because of this, which we'll talk about. And so there's a huge effect on organizations.
So speaking of the organizations, how are they dealing with all these changes?
So not so well. There's a research which showed that in the first 6 months of 2020, there were the same amount of attacks like the entire 2019. Why? Because again, organizations went so fast to adapt their networks for remote access, they didn't have time, effort, capacity to adapt them to security. It's like opening all these doors into your house, but not investing in a strong enough alarm system to accommodate all of those doors and windows.
It's scary.
It is. And we saw, you know, we did a research and we talked to customers and partners. There's a research that shows that every month during 2020, there was a major attack. The largest one, as you can see here on the slide, was SolarWinds. You know, everybody heard about SolarWinds. And there were a lot of attacks because of this vast amount of new traffic coming from remote, from users who are not used to it. We saw ransomware attacks. We saw attacks on the actual VPN infrastructure, right? Because everybody's now using VPNs, and VPNs were suddenly this boom. It's a technology we've had for 20 years, but is now highly used. Hasn't been invested so much, but suddenly everybody's using it, so it's much more vulnerable. So we saw many attacks on VPN providers, and we saw ransomware, like SolarWinds, like insurance companies here in Israel. So yeah, the security became a big, big issue.
So let's get down to business. How is safety helping these organizations deal with these new threats?
So we're trying. What we develop is a solution we call Zone Zero. It's a software solution, a platform, if you will, that we sell to our customers through partners. One of the things we did in 2020, we had to adopt not being able to fly, right? You need to talk to your customers. So what we did in order to be able to pitch our message is go after partners who are local. So that saves us flying. So we have quite a lot of partners selling our solutions now around the world, including the UAE. And our solution is based on a concept called zero trust. The idea behind zero trust is moving from trusting all of our users to not trusting all of our users. Easier said than done. And the idea is that if I don't trust you initially, the attack surface of my organization is improved. And the idea is to authenticate you first, and I'll give you an analogy in a second, and only after I make sure you are who you are, allow you to access our resources. We're one of the leaders in this zero trust access space. And our main uniqueness, I think, is the ability to adapt and control all types of users. If you think about it, you have your work from home users we talked about. You have people connecting from your VPN and people still driving into the office in certain locations. We're the only platform in this zero trust space that accommodates all of these users together. And we do this, again, based on the identity. Because if you think about it, Eitan, myself, might today be in the office, tomorrow work from my home laptop, and suddenly in the evening get a phone call. Can you just connect a second from your tablet or phone? This is 3 different endpoints I'm using, but it's still Eitan. So what we do is we look at the identity of the person. That defines the applications and services they can see, and that's the only thing you can do. Now, the analogy for this, imagine you're going to a meeting at a bank, right? The old or standard way of access means I tell you where the bank is, you drive up to the bank, you get to the security guard, and he asks you for your ID. You give him your ID, he validates you, says, okay, fair enough. You go inside and you walk to your meeting. Now, if you were approved, you walk in and you get to your room. You now can, you can look around the bank and see how many security guards, what's going on. If you were denied because something was wrong in your authentication, the guard would tell you, okay, thank you very much, go away. But you know where the bank is. You can try robbing it, breaking into it. That's standard way of access. That's VPN, stuff like that. The way we look at it is instead of telling you where the bank is, I tell you, okay, drive to this apartment in Tel Aviv. That's where I authenticate you. Now, if I deny you access, the only thing you know is where this apartment in Tel Aviv is. And it might be a ghost apartment. So tomorrow, if you try to go to that apartment, it doesn't, nobody's there. Now, so you don't know where the bank is. Now, if you are authenticated, I blindfold you. I drive you to the bank and put you in a specific room. So you know you're in the bank. You can do whatever meet your banker. But you don't know what a bank looks like, where it is.
You're blind.
You're blind, right? And when you leave, I drive you back to Tel Aviv. And that's the way we work. That's what we offer our customers. And the idea is that you deploy the platform in the network, very easy to deploy. In a few hours, it's up and running. It doesn't really affect the network or user behavior. And the nice thing, it works with all of your solutions. You have a VPN, will work with your VPN. You want to switch over a VPN because it was hacked, we'll give you a solution instead of your VPN. You only have internal users, like one of our customers who's a military organization, will adapt and work only with your internal users. And that's
all right.
That's what
Sounds
we do.
like a much needed solution.
Yes.
Eitan Bremler, thank you so much.
Thank you.